Hey, what's up, y'all? We are live for coaching conversations. Come on in. Little note for myself. Welcome to Coaching Conversations. Come on in the room and join us. Hello, viewers. Come on in and join the conversation. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Coaching Conversations. My name is Jamie Alilaw, and I am a leadership and life coach, and I'm also a performer. And Coaching Conversations is here to just really engage in conversations about various topics that are of support to me and hopefully to the viewer. Is really just an excuse for me to get together with some dynamic people that I know and have conversations about areas that they know about and for me to just, come and learn and to share with y'all. So today I'm so excited about today's conversation, and I say it every week, but and I am excited every week, but I'm excited about this conversation because I connected with my girl on this because this is the work that she does. She works and focuses in sexuality and sexual health. And so I was like, I want to have a conversation about empowered sexuality. And then Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion handed us on the platter a video single that is ripe for the conversations about empowerment meeting sexuality. So I'm so excited to have here today my girl Chanel Jaali of Jaali Co. Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
We've been like Instagram posting, Facebook posting, like, y'all, we're ready. We are ready to talk about it. So I mean, and that's just one portion of the conversation, right? Because it's about so much more. But to have this real time, applicable, tangible thing to kind of reference and center conversation on was a really exciting treat for me. So I'm excited about that. So welcome, Chanel Jaali. Y'all, I would like to introduce my friend. We met and connected when I first moved to Atlanta, and she was part of this community of just dynamic Black folks that I had the chance to connect with here. And I have known Jaali to be a quiet elegance. She is, and it's a very tangible, accessible, yet elevated elegance. And
I received it. Thank you.
She is knowledge and understanding, love and consideration and listening. She's insight and intuition. And I know that the world is better to have you in the realm of work that you operate in because it has been an especially traumatizing, I'll make that generalization, right? Especially traumatizing on a personal a personal level for many people, but just even collectively, the way that we view and engage with or disengage with sexuality and sexual health and sexual identity and just all things sex.
Mm-hmm.
we need some help and support. So to have you in this realm, I am happy to have you there, and I love observing your posts and the conversations that you bring up, because you do it with humor as well, and just a certain levity. So anyway, and I know you as Jaali. I'll put Chanel Jaali. I met you and know you as Jaali, and
Yeah, and that's totally
so
yeah.
yeah. So if I say that, folks, don't be confused. But Jaali, would you share with us who you are, what what you feel you would like for us to know about you, and just a little bit about the work that you do, and what Jaali Co is.
Sure. So I'm Chanel Jaali, either or both is fine. I'm from Atlanta, like Jamie said. I live in DC now. And I started out as a sex researcher first. So it really started out with, I have a degree in psychology undergrad, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And having a conversation with some homegirls, the conversation turned to sex, as duh, it always does, some kind of way. And it was kind of like this, like, I wonder if there's like some kind of like sex psychology. And that's what started this whole path, just me being curious. And then I'm like, what question do I want to answer? And what kept coming up is how Black women were learning about sex, and like their behaviors and attitudes and how they interact with their sexual selves, and um, their sexual selves with other people. So I thought it was really interesting to see all of these layers, and then there were some themes. So really wanted to break that down. So that's how I kind of started out. And then I started doing some volunteer work with some organizations like Sister Song and Sister Love in Atlanta. And they do a lot of amazing reproductive justice work. And so that started my education part. And then from there, it just kind of kept going. Like, it's one of those things like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Got it. So when that clicked for me, it's like, that's kind of been my, my mode ever since. I started Jaali Co 10 years ago now.
Hey.
And basically, time flies. Like, I don't know what happened, but it's 10 years later. And yeah, so basically, my focus is to kind of break down taboos, to have open and honest conversations. I push a lot of people. I do a lot of like one-on-one conversations, especially with men, and I push you. I'm going to ask why you think that, or where did you get that from, or things like that. That helps me, and it also helps me to help you, right? Um, Additionally, I do a lot of workshops and classes and community work and things like that. So, but all of it is centered around sex, sexuality, relationships, body positivity, all of those things. So, really, 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 really important for me to be sex positive and to show that in the work that I do. Um, Inclusive information, medically accurate information, and pleasure based information, because there is sex ed that is not sex positive. So I just want to put that out there too. Anybody who might be from the Bible Belt knows about, abstinence only education. I'm not gonna go into that because that's gonna spin me left. But that is not necessarily sex positive the way it's presented a lot of times. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do. I travel around, I speak, I present my research, I talk to people. So yeah, it's a lot of different things, but it's all got the same goal.
Okay. And my with doing coaching conversations in general, I find that my intention is to fill my own cup. Because it's very nourishing and nurturing for me to talk to you, to talk to my girls, to talk to my people,
Yeah.
and to engage in these kind of expansive conversations. And so it fills my cup, and so and hopefully to fill the cups of others. And on this conversation especially, my intention is to broaden and expand, um, tone, uh, the perceptions,
Mm-hmm.
and to ignite curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a willingness to release judgment for the sake of curiosity. Um, and I'm curious as to what your intentions would be for today's conversation.
It's always my intention to be as open as possible. Um, One thing I pride myself on is no judgment zone. I know people say that a lot, but I really, really mean it. You can say
Hmm.
that, you know what, I have a thing for cucumbers. Okay, I'm here for that. Tell me about that. What does that mean?
Right.
You know, is there a way that, let's talk about it. Do you need to be safer? Like, like I'm here for it. Whatever you're into,
Yeah.
as long as there's like enthusiastic consent on all parties, I don't
Yes.
care which, you know what I mean? Like, I got a couple rules in place. Like, are you, there's no harm, there's no, is there consent in place, things like that. But outside of that, do what you do. People are literally into everything, literally. So, like we have to create space for that because that's how they express themselves, their sexual selves. So, my intention is to like have open conversation to connect some pieces. There are disconnects, and I know we'll talk about WAP later, but to connect some pieces with Cardi B and Bessie Smith, and like we can make those connections and realize like what we're seeing is not new. But I'll pause on that
Yes.
now. Yeah.
Come on now. We are going to teach the people on today is what I'm hearing.
I will do my best. I will do my best.
Well, and this is an open conversation, right? So I just want to remind the viewing audience, that we welcome your engagement. So go ahead in the comments, drop your insights, your questions, your curiosity, your thoughts as we're going. Go ahead and drop it in there. And I know some people are like, "What is a WAP?" Okay. So I encourage you to also maybe we'll get into that too a little bit later in terms of what what is a WAP. But any questions like that come up for you, go ahead and put them in the comment section. We talking and we have a conversation. So Jolly, you said that you got your degree in psychology and were looking for, what can I do in this? So I just what what um equips you to do this work and to
Hmm.
do it um in such a judgment free, open way?
I would say I have to do a lot of my own work, and to be effective, I have to constantly be checking myself too, right? Because I do this work does not mean that I'm free from any stigma or um, boundary issue. Like, it doesn't make me free from those things. It's that I work really hard and I'm really intentional about checking those things and unlearn. I had to unlearn a lot of stuff to get to this point now. Because when I started out and where I am now, two different places. And so I think for me, because I'm really, I've worked hard to realize that sexuality is a spectrum and that could look many ways and that there are a zillion relationship configurations and like all of these moving pieces. Um, it creates in my mind more space for people to be who they really are. And I think when we try to like say, okay, you fit here and that's all you can do right here, then it limits you from even exploring your full self. And so I think going back to doing my own work, I'm still learning that stuff and still discovering new things, and I will 10 years from now. So I think that's a really, really, really big piece of it. Um, Additionally, being able to have difficult conversations. And that's when I find that I have to check myself the most, is when I have these frustrating conversations that are frustrating to me about,
Mm,
sexuality of men versus women, and then not recognizing our trans brothers and sisters as men and women. Like those specific kinds of conversations really send me, and I have to like actively in the moment be like, okay, girl, center yourself. All right, bring it down. Because I know me, like that's a hill, and I was just literally saying this yesterday to my friend. I don't play around about certain things, and that's a hill I'm willing to die on. And that's what I will
yeah,
say to people. Like, we're not going to dismiss anybody's humanity, things like that. So it took me being educated and being clear and asking questions. And thankfully, I have a wide range of friends, a wide range of resources that I can pull from. And also, Google is open and free too. So if I don't have access, so if I don't have access to somebody, somebody's doing this work out there. And
yeah,
so that's another piece. It's just like, you know, sometimes I hope that we are further along than we were, and sometimes we are, and sometimes we are absolutely not. So
yeah.
being able to work through that helps me to like keep going, because I'm like, well, I can't stop now because that was a lot. So there's some more work to be done, but it is a lot of work. It really is. So
I mean, and it sounds like the thing that empowers you to do this work, which really what I'm hearing is a love and a heart for people being fully expressed, right? And it just happens to be focused in this area of sexuality. And it's like that thing that equips you to do that work is also the thing that you got to check, because that's that thing that's going to push the button when somebody comes for the wholeness and the completeness of others. It's like, now you messing with my work.
and then that's when I have to be like, oh girl, okay, I have to literally like push it down.
Right, because it involves those people too, right? Like your work involves those people, maybe even more so,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Right. So that's when I really have to check myself, because I'm like, no, this is also the work. So dang, okay.
Just not the sexy part of it,
it
but
man,
it
and
must be done.
that's definitely a misconception, that because we work in that sex world that it's like all like, yes, shoulder roll and what I did last night. No, it is some like, I know we all do. No, like a lot of it is exhausting and tiring and sad and tragic and all of these
Mm.
things. But then a lot of it is all of that too. It's a mix. Like, to get to this, we have to go through that messy part, so you
Yeah.
can do this with no issue and no hold up and things like that. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. So
I mean, I imagine, like, so as a vocalist and as a vocal coach, I often find and observe that you do, like you said, you got to go through these things that are seemingly unrelated, but are very much related because we are humans and it's all in here, right? So we got to go through these things that are seemingly unrelated to get to the part that we're here for. And so
mhm.
I wonder, what are some of the in this time, what are some of the most pervasive conversations that you are having or that you're finding that people are interested in having?
Lately, and I don't know if it's the pandemic or whatever, I've been blaming a lot of stuff on Rona, but a lot of conversation.
I mean, sis is
Listen,
responsible for a lot.
listen, Rona's out here like wrecking everything and everybody. So it could be. And I feel
It
like
could
that's
be.
valid, and I'm gonna stick to that. But Rona done brought out some conversations that I feel like people have been waiting to
Mm,
have. I'm grateful that on one side, I'm grateful that they feel open enough to come to me to talk about these things that they maybe not understand or need clarity around. On the other side, like the conversations have been, and this is no shade, do not at me, please. A lot of the conversations have been with cisgender heterosexual men, right?
Yeah.
And I truly love everybody. It doesn't matter, like, whatever. But there is a lot of navigating of masculinity and the concept of gender and what it means to be a man and all of these things. And I've been having some really, really interesting and difficult conversations around pronouns, around our trans brothers and sisters. And I think everybody I've spoken to have been like Black. So that's another layer on top, right? Of your gender or your sexuality. And then knowing the difference between sex and gender. And then knowing the difference between sex and sexuality and orientation. And like, and so a lot of things have been like, they want to have a certain conversation, but we have to, like you just said, we have to go back a couple steps to get this together before we can have this conversation
Yeah.
because we're not even clear on that other thing. So let's get that other thing together and then we'll come back here. So that's been really interesting. I feel like more people
Has
are.
the willingness been there to do this kind of, I mean, this is my turn, this kind of like remediation to get to that point? Like, has the willingness been there to do that kind of work, I guess?
Yes and no. A couple people, I'm like, okay, this is going. You need to pay me for my time because I'm not really sure. Like, this is not a one conversation thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there has been some dismissiveness, which I don't
Mm,
like. Um, that's definitely like a trigger for me. Do not dismiss someone's experience. Don't do that. That's
yeah.
not cool. You wouldn't want it done to you, so don't do it to other people. Um, so it's, I'm not trying to like heal the world, save the world, but I am going to make it plain and tell people because, I feel like a lot of times people are so caught up in wondering about other people's gender and what does this mean? This is really none of your business. And I have to say that a lot, like to people. Like I can explain these concepts, but like, why are you bothered? Let's talk about
Right.
that. That's two
Yeah.
separate things. We can do terms, we can do break it down as far as, this means this. I'm here for that. But like, let's also discuss why you mad. Now, if you mad, that's another thing that I'm sure that's some
Yeah.
other stuff. You know what I mean? So like, that's the piece right there. I'm fine
Yeah.
with it, but that's the piece right there. Why you mad? So that's what I'm like. It's what it's none of your
Because
business.
you gotta check why you mad to even be able to inform the lens with which you perceive this information I'm finna give you, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I had this conversation with my friend the other day because there are many things as far as the sexuality and gender spectrums that are very new to me, right? And I was talking to him and I was like, but this liberating revelation that I have is like, I don't have to understand. I don't have to get it. I don't have to agree. I don't have to like, I don't have to have an opinion either way in order to honor and respect a human being.
Right.
Period. Like, and then I have an interest in being further informed. I want to know, I want to understand, I want to align myself right with where we are and what's happening. But in order for me to respect and honor another human being, that stuff doesn't even have to be there. But if it's not there, right, like that respect and that honoring, and this is a word across industries, right? If that
Yeah.
respect and honoring is not there, that's not about the other person. That's fully, completely, and totally about you. right?
Yeah.
So, like you said, come on over and let's have that conversation. Why you mad?
Yeah. Right. Why are you mad? And I've literally said that. Why are you mad though? Like, why is your first reaction anger? You
Yeah.
know, because I was specifically, for one conversation, specifically talking about bisexuality. And this particular person um, thinks it's fine for, a femme, to be bisexual, but doesn't want to sleep with a woman who sleeps with a bisexual man. So then my question is, why are you not extending the same grace to the bisexual man? And it's because that person centered himself in his perception of bisexuality for women, and as an
Hmm.
opportunity for, oh, maybe this can turn into a threesome, or oh, maybe this can, he was still centered in somebody else's
Right.
sexuality way. You know what I mean? And so I had to like talk about that, and I'm like, so how come she can be bi and he can't? What does that mean? So it was just like, and honestly, that conversation spiraled, and I really did have to, whew, like I had to,
Yeah.
I had to find my whiskey after that dang conversation, because I was so tired. I was so tired. But but like, it's a conversation that needs to be had, and I need to know, since you brought it to me, now I need to know
Yeah.
like why you mad, and why now I need to know why this is this way, but it can't go the other way. But so there's lots and lots and lots of things to unpack when we're talking about these topics, really, really and
And it
truly.
and it really it segues into, right, this conversation around our girls, Cardi and Meg the Stallion, right?
Yeah.
In this new single they've released. I mean, and I listened to it. I was like, this is the epitome of everything you would expect from Cardi B and Meg the Stallion, right?
Yeah.
Like they did what you would expect them to do.
Yeah.
And we be in these social media streets, right? So we've been privy to some of the conversations that are going on, and it does tend to get pretty baffling for me, the disconnects that happens. You mentioned earlier about making these connections, right? The disconnect that happens in our community in regards to women's expressed sexuality and men's expressed sexuality, and even the projection of their men's concepts of women's sexuality, right? Like, so men will talk about their sexuality and they will project on to women, like you said, in terms of centering themselves in somebody else's sexuality or whatever. But then when we start to engage with a woman who is speaking on her own sexual experiences, right, then we get worried about the babies, the kids, what's gonna happen to the future. you know what I mean, everything all of a sudden blows up, right? When you've got these two women who are speaking very candidly with very colorful, illuminating language.
Right.
It becomes, and listen, like you said, you've had to do your own work, and are continuing to do that work, and I'm doing my work too, because and I attribute a lot of it to misogyny, right? Like these projections on how a woman is and isn't supposed to be, and it's completely informed by how men feel about it or view it, right? And those things, the internalized misogyny. So I'll say there's some stuff that still makes me uncomfortable, and
Sure.
the way
Yeah.
I've chosen to work is I dive in. I'm like, okay, all right, that's ass, all right, that's whole ass in my face, let's sit with it. Sit with it. What's coming up
Oh
for
my
me?
God.
Let's get curious.
Right. What comes up for you when there's a whole ass in your face? Right.
no ass in your face, right? And she real comfortable about it. I'm like, well, if you like it, I love it. Let's sit with that. But so it's funny in a lot of ways, right? But let's talk about that because I am present to some of the discomforts that come up for me personally.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, help us out, right? Help us to to make these connections. Where it in my perception it is so detached and so disconnected. Like you're not seeing how A and B relate to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, let me say that I have been twerking to that song all day yesterday.
Yes.
As soon as when you messaged me, I was like, let me go ahead and watch it. And I was just like, and then I messaged you back. I was like, it was glorious, right? And
Yes,
so,
everything.
because I think I look at it from different ways. Okay. So if you don't like the actual song and like how it sounds to your ears, not the words, not all of that, that's a different thing, right?
Yeah,
If
right,
you
right,
don't, you know what I'm saying? Okay.
right.
If you don't like, if I saw the video and it was like, it's something that you have to watch several times because like the colors and the art direction, I'm like, yes,
Yes,
it's art. Just like, people are always debating, like, that's what art does. It
right.
makes people talk. So all the
Hmm.
conversations, I'm here for that. The issue is they're not talking about the art direction. They're talking about, the twerking and the da, 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 da. Fine. Okay. So when I first heard the song, I was like, oh dang, we used to quote the song, like you and I are on the same age. So as soon as I
Yes.
heard it, I was like, ah,
Hey.
I remember that, like
Yes.
it's so close. If you see him, point him out. Like I remember that. And it's been around, so like younger folks may not have that connection, right? Like for
Right.
me, it was part throwback, it was part, visually
Yes.
stunning. They looked amazing to me. It was only the one
Come on,
part,
updo.
right? And so what's interesting is that every time something like this comes out, I feel like anytime like either one of them comes out with something, there's discussion, right? But they aren't new. They're the newest
Right.
generation of the same thing.
Right.
Growing up, we had who like Lil Kim, Foxy
Right. Of
Brown,
course.
people like
Hmm.
that. It's the same thing. Further
Right.
back, I mean, there's always been women talking about their own sexuality throughout. Going way back, you're talking about Bessie Smith, Rosetta Tharpe, like, and Google these people if you don't know. It's some lyrics that you'll be like, oh, that's how your
Hmm.
mom and them got here. Because they, it's a whole, I have to find a song and I hope somebody is watching that finds it. But it was like a wild song from way back. And it was the lyrics, you're like, oh, like if Cardi B said this now, but you wouldn't expect that from back in the day.
Right.
So like
Right.
this stuff is not new. We grew up on many different kinds of songs, both men and women artists. And I can think of certain songs now that like I wasn't really allowed to sing, but I knew all the words too. But like that didn't turn me into like, some sex crazed person. Because I'm just like, you also have to have reinforcement. If you are a
Yeah.
parent and you're worried about the babies, then this is a teachable moment,
Yeah.
right? This is a chance to talk about, body positivity if they happen to see the video or if they happen to
Yeah.
hear the words and be like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like there are ways to teach around it. It's a whole lot in that one song. So that's probably not a starter song for you, right? Because it goes there. But there is space for that if they happen to come across it. This is for the people who are worried about the babies. And there is space to teach.
Yes.
Um age appropriate sex education for your kid to that song. It might be difficult for you, but it's still possible. Um, and on top of that, I feel like you alluded to earlier, they are just really doing what the men rappers have been doing since, right? They have talked about their penis size and what they gonna do to all the women and all the whatever, and what they can do, what they blah blah blah. And they're just doing the same thing. So what's the difference? We was bopping, to all
Right,
their songs. So what's the difference now? Oh, it's because it's women and women aren't supposed to do this. Why not? So
right.
then we're in a whole conversation about like, patriarchy and misogyny and the ways that both men and women internalize it. If
Yes.
if your first reaction is disgust, why? Why are you disgusted specifically?
Yeah.
And I know that neither one of them showed up modest in that video, and that's fine. You don't have to go out and get, a bodysuit with the breasts out. You don't have to go and do that in order to be a
So,
sexy or sexual person. But like, if that's how Cardi B expresses her sexuality, that is what Cardi B does. You do not have to, imitate that. That does not mean that she is the epitome of all things sexy. It's sexy. It looks a million different ways. Um, I'm in some group and there was a meme and it's like, um, fellas, what do you like women to wear or something? What's your favorite thing for women to wear? And even though it's very gendered and very specific, but besides that,
mhm.
it was very simple stuff. It was like, sweatpants and a tank top with no bra, or like, boy shorts came up a lot. And, so like there is a way for you to express yourself in the way that you are comfortable. And so when I see the judgment and the like, people are mad about two women who decided, let's do this song together. Let's, talk about all the things. Um, and I feel like some people are mad because I was talking to my friend. She was like, they just mad because, they didn't have to cook and clean and do all this stuff. And still they, because
I
it's
mean, Cardi said it in the song, didn't she? She said, "I don't cook, I don't clean, but I'm about to tell you how I got this ring."
when I say I laughed for 7 whole minutes, child, on that alone. you know? And so I'm like, yeah. And then my thing is like, y'all act like y'all mama, grandmama, auntie, and them ain't doing the same thing. It just doesn't look the way that they presented it. This stuff is not new.
Listen, El Michelle said, "Say that. Let's talk about what made you a mama. Sex made our mamas mothers, and then we divorce motherhood from the threshold that creates it."
Thank
Right?
you.
There's and really, I think that that's really a crux of much of this, is that the disconnect is due to lack of conversation and engagement, right? That's driven by fear, that's driven by, discomfort, right? So it's like these you've got this complete void of conversation, right? Like we don't talk about it. We try to pretend like it's not here, and then bam, you get slapped in the face by somebody who said, "I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna show you about it. I'm gonna be about it. I'm gonna do about it. And I'm gonna talk about it some more."
Mm-hmm,
Right?
mm-hmm.
And so it provokes all of these things, right? Because this stuff was there already, right? Like Cardi didn't make you feel this way. Meg didn't make you feel this way. This stuff was there already, but
Yes.
they triggered it, they
Yeah.
activated it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is that there's no real space to engage with the uncertainty, the insecurity, the discomfort, the anger, right? Because a lot of anger that I see coming from women, geared towards these women, I feel is often grounded and rooted in what you alluded to, like the audacity, for you to be so free,
How
right?
dare
Like I'm over
you?
here, right?
Right.
I'm over here being respectable, I'm over here being a lady, right? And you got the audacity to be tits and ass out and have a ring and have a baby and have this life that I attributed, right? Like that you have to be this way in order to get to this. And how dare you not ascribe to those, rules and still have what I aspire to, or what I think it should only be the product of living this pure, wholesome.
Exactly. And then like you over here living pure and wholesome and mad as hell every
And
day.
mad because you
Just
ain't
big
never had an
mad. Big
orgasm.
mad. Because you don't know what your own body feels like.
That you
Why?
are allowed to feel good.
You are allowed to feel good. And that concept right there is really hard for a lot of people. You are
Yeah.
allowed to be a sexual person. You can be churchy, you can be in church every day of the week, and you're still allowed to be a sexual person. So if there's somebody out there that's real churchy, I'm here for
Yes.
it. Go to church, do all the things that you want to do, and you're
Yes.
still allowed to be a sexual person. You're a human being. So when we try to shut off those things, like that's why you mad, because you ain't released none of that stuff. Let it go. Dang. And
It's
it
you
doesn't
not
have to be.
engaging with your WAP.
Thank
That's why.
you. Thank you. Listen. And like there's so much access to pleasure, and pleasure looks
Yeah.
like a lot of different things. It doesn't have to look the way like Cardi B and Meg, like they have been like they like punch people in the face with it. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be like that
It
for
doesn't have
you.
to. Yeah.
Also, they're entertainers. We don't know if that's who they are in real life. Like we don't know if this is, uh um exaggerated version, because as a performer myself, like if I'm doing burlesque with my troupe or something, like I'm an exaggerated version of me. Child,
Right.
I be at home in comfy pants watching Netflix. Like that's really me. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like what I have shown to you is this thing. So I think we
Yeah.
also have to like stop the judgment there because y'all don't know Cardi B. Like y'all don't know her.
Yeah.
You don't know them for real. So it's just really interesting to to hear these conversations. And when we're talking about like cisgender heterosexual men, it's interesting that, they can consume this art and consume, what they're saying and be like, But like, let you go on a date with somebody and they're like, yes, I got a WAP and this is, how I act. Then she's a hoe. Then
Right.
I can't wife her. I can't date her. Like, she be out here
Yeah.
with everybody. Maybe not. Maybe she's doing that for you. And like my
Yeah.
thing is like, so it's just all these different angles and layers that I'm like, if you don't like it, you need to sit with it and figure out what the anger is coming from. If you
Yeah.
don't like it from an art perspective, click X in the corner and don't watch it. Like I feel like to me it's real this simple like that, but I don't know.
I
Maybe
mean,
not.
I feel like we're really in a time, and you pointed out, right, this is not new, especially to music, especially to Black music, right? This is not new in terms of
Yeah.
exploring sexuality through music. And I'll say one of the benefits that something I see as a benefit is in many ways and I think this is part of the fear too. In many ways, it does give permission, right? Because if all of the narratives and the images that you've been given are that this is the way, or like you said, what did you do? You described the sex education that is not sex positive, right? And so if that's all you've been exposed to is non-sex positive messages, and there's something in you that's like, but I'm a freak. But I don't know if I'm allowed. But everything else is telling me I'm not allowed to be a freak. Whatever. And so then you've got this discord within yourself. Then you see Cardi on the screen with the cheeks out and the cutout, and you're like, that's my aesthetic. I remember hearing Dolly Parton talk about her look, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about when she was little, and there was this woman in the neighborhood, right? And
Yeah.
she had all the makeup on, and she was the fishnets, and
Yeah.
she had the pow pang poem
Right.
situation, and it was like, who is that? And they told her she's a whore, and
Mm.
she said, I want to be a whore too. And so when that song started, and they said, there's some hoes in this house, and I was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
wow, right? To engage with it. And even that notion of kind of flipping and taking back ownership of these terms that have really been used to objectify
Right.
us, that's not new, right? You have Amber Rose and the slut walk.
Right.
You got
Mm-hmm.
all of these different things where it's like, okay, I'm gonna be a slut then. If that's what it means to be free and to be empowered and to explore and all of this, then I'll be a hoe, I'll be a slut,
Right.
whatever,
I always
according to
tell
my
people I am
definition.
pro ho, child. I am pro ho.
That's
I'm
the most
always
funny
gonna be
house.
pro ho because the way I hoe may not be the way Jamie hoes, right?
Right. And you
And
can't
maybe
be
I
mad
don't.
when I make it what I make it. That's the thing. Like, you mad because you was trying to use it as a weapon against me, right? You mad
Exactly.
because you were trying to make me a hoe, right?
Right.
And I said,
You're like,
oh yeah,
and
I'm a hoe.
right, and I'm like, that's not the insult you think it is, my dear.
Ah,
It's really not
yeah,
the insult you think it
that's it.
is.
That's
So
it.
it's really interesting, and I applaud them for just doing what they want to do, and like it's okay, like make people uncomfortable. It's this little meme that I love to put. It just says it's like a little sign that says "Die Mad," because I'm like, if you're not sitting with it and
Yeah,
figuring out why you are mad, then you are hurting yourself. And like I said before, sex and sexuality is so vast and it has so many moving parts, and who you are at 25 is not who you are at 40, and your sexual self, those are two different sexual beings. And so if you're not tuning into that part of yourself, then you could be missing out on
yeah,
a lot of things. And when I'm talking to people, there are a lot of people who are way more fluid than they realize. They subscribe
yeah,
to a very specific orientation, but in real life, when I'm talking to you about it's moving along that spectrum. Sometimes it's
yeah.
coming back and forth, and sometimes it's a little more here, So, and that's okay. And that's the thing. Like, it's okay to be attracted to another human being, and they may share your gender identity. They may not, and it's still okay. Um, Subscribing to an orientation or identifying as bi does not mean that you have had sex with somebody that you share a gender identity with.
Mm-hmm.
You may have attraction to multiple genders, but it doesn't mean that you have slept with all the people. So
Mm-hmm.
there are just things that, we have to, since we have labels and stuff, and since we have categories and whatever, well, then let's talk about it. What does that mean? Um, so it's just, there's lots and lots and lots of layers there. And it's been really fascinating to have these conversations, especially with Black women, about like how you learn about sex in the first place. And that really informs how you proceed in your sexual life.
Well,
Um,
this takes me into my next question that you're going into. What does a sex positive education looks like? Keeping in mind, right, that it's not relegated to like, oh, when you're in sixth grade or when you're in eighth grade, right? Like,
yeah.
many of us, I mean, I still am engaged in many of us who this notion of sexual fluidity is new. We're still immersed in a sex education, right? So what does positive education look like, and how do we pursue it?
I think it starts with, I think one of the components is recognizing that sex and sexuality looks many different ways. I think getting that concept in order is really, really important because oftentimes we're taught that, you know, things are to be expressed a specific way if you are a specific person, right? If I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman, I need to be doing these things in order to be acceptable or whatever. Um, I think that getting your education, realizing that within that spectrum of sexuality, live different orientations, live different identities. Okay, what do these things mean? Because you have pansexuals, you have bisexuals, you have asexuals, you have all of these different people who have these different experiences that you could really learn from. And the stories are out there. So it's not like, we're in the age, we're in 2020. So we have information overload. So there should be no reason that, we don't have the ability to have access to these different things. And if you don't know them, you can reach out to me. I can direct you into the right area if I don't know it. Um, I also think it is tapping into yourself, knowing your own body. I think is really important too. If you don't want to start outside, if you want to start with yourself, I think, actually knowing what your parts look like. I always tell people get a mirror. If you are a vulva owner, get a mirror and look at your vulva. You need to know what it looks like, not only from a pleasure standpoint, from a health standpoint.
Right.
Because if you look one day and things ain't looking right, you need to be on the first thing smoking to the doctor so you can figure out what those changes are. So I tell people it's beyond, all these things are connected. Your sexual self is connected to your health, it's connected to this, it's connected to that. Um, I think decolonizing our education is also important. We have to realize the systems that infiltrate how we learn and what we learn and the stories we're told and things like that. Is your education, misogynist? Is it white, is it full of white supremacy? Who is telling the stories? Are you getting the stories from the source, or is it, from the hunter and not the lion? Like, who is it from? So I think it's being really intentional about the information that you take in. It's about knowing your own body and being open to all the pleasure that you deserve and are
Right.
allowed to feel. Um, it's about if you have little ones or even big little ones. I always call, teenagers old kids. And even like those beginner college kids, I'm like, y'all just extra old children. But
I got an extra old one. She's going to
right,
be
you have an
18
extra
this
old,
year.
right, you have an extra old, and there's still space for that, right? Because
Yep,
their 17, 18 is not our 17, 18
that is true.
at
I said,
all.
I just posted, I was like, my child had to explain to me the macaroni in the pot analogy reference from the song.
Yes, like
And
we
we
didn't
have that
have
relationship
that
though.
language.
Yeah. And we have that relationship though, to where I'm like, what's
Exactly.
this? And she didn't have to front and be like, I don't know what that is. She was like, oh,
See,
that's a reference from the Vine.
and that's the thing, like, and that's a perfect example, right? Because she didn't flinch, and you were able to ask that question, and
Yeah.
that is so, so, so important. Even if you don't start your sex ed from a young age, it's still possible to be a sex positive person. Kids watch what we do. You
Yeah.
know, that saying, like, what is it? Do as I say, not as I
What
do,
they
or
say,
something
not like,
like that. And you can talk, and that's fine, but it's also reinforced by your actions. So if you're talking badly about your body, then that's messaging that you're passing along to your
Yeah.
kid. If you see the video come across and you're like, look at that, and
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna connect that. It may not be, in some flowery language, but kids are not dumb. We
Mm-hmm.
don't give kids enough credit. And so then, if they grow up and then now they, are into puberty and things like that, and they have all of this, like, it's already an awkward stage. But if you have that messaging on top of being just
Yeah.
naturally awkward for everybody, then yikes,
Yeah.
And then I'm not gonna even go into like religion and how that's like that can kind of
That's a
throw people.
whole separate
That's a
conversation.
whole
That like we
separate
could do a whole coaching conversation just on that.
just on that alone. So
Yeah.
I'm just pulling from like the research and the people that I have spoken to, and it's layered and it's not easy. And nobody ever wants to talk to their kids about sex, seemingly. But I do say if you need a resource, sex positive families. They're on Instagram, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, sex positive families. Melissa runs it, and just excellent resources, very accessible ways to actually talk to your kids. So if you need that, Sex Positive Families is a great start. So if you need that. So yeah, and there are things that you can learn there are things that you can learn as adults from that too. So don't think it's just for people who have kids, because there are some basic level things that you're just like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. Like when I make my kid go hug auntie such and such and uncle such and such,
Yeah.
I'm not giving them body autonomy. I'm not asking if they have consent around their bodies. Do they even want to talk to them or sit on laps or hug people? Like, you have to consider that. So if you don't want to do it as an adult, like they're just small people, like they don't
Yeah.
want to do it either. So there's lots of layers there.
I mean, and we joked about how we could take the religion element, but really all of these aspects can be parsed down to smaller focused conversations because again, they all impact our sexual experience, and in turn oftentimes our sexual experiences can impact those other aspects of it. So how we I mean I, I've been enjoying this conversation so greatly. And I know you are actually you working because you are tell the people what you are doing right now, where you're at.
Yes, so that's what I have on my little ribbon. I am in Northern Virginia right now, and we are handing out HIV kits to people. So we have a socially distanced event going on. Usually we do actual testing and things like that, but because Rona is out here in these
Yeah.
streets, we are like thoroughly masked up over here and
Yes.
handing out kits that people can do at home. It takes 20 minutes. It's just a swab of the cheek, and offering follow up and counseling if necessary. So that's why I'm not in my home office right now. But yeah, collaborating with Gay Men's Health Collaborative here in Northern Virginia, in Nova Juniper, that does testing and care for HIV folks. So yeah.
Okay. So again, you are a sex researcher, sex health advocate. You do public speaking. You do education. So let the people know how they can stay. She posts funny stuff. So let the people know how they can stay engaged and connected with you.
Absolutely. I promise to show my face more on social media. I post a lot, but you don't really see me a lot. So I have been challenged by a colleague to do better
Hmm.
about showing my face and actually talking. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. It's accountability.
Thank
Now
you.
to set it out to the world, I have to do it. But you can follow me. My website is jollyco.com. And then I am on Facebook at Jolly Co. and on Instagram and Twitter at Jaali_co. So JAALI_CO. And yeah, I'm pretty accessible. You can email, DM. Please, no foolishness, but we'll anyway.
I
So
can imagine. I can imagine. As soon as you said DM, I can imagine because folks just don't know how to act.
I'm gonna blame it on Rona. Rona did that.
That
Rona
Rona did it. You know
yeah,
Rona
Rona
did it.
did it.
Jolly, thank you so much for taking the time and putting a pause on your day to come join us for this coaching conversation around empowered sexuality. Like I said, I know my intention was met personally, and I hope for the audience as well. Because I have expanded my awareness on certain things and even my capacity to engage these conversations publicly, right? Because
Mhm.
that's another layer, right? To
Yeah,
be able to have this conversation out loud and on camera,
right?
to be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because there's nothing wrong with it. It is okay,
It's
right? And like
okay.
you said, for children and for each other, we mirror these things, sometimes better than we say it, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
it's okay to have these conversations. It's okay to receive and give pleasure with enthusiastic consent. Come on, language, because you got to put it out there. That is essential. That is non negotiable. That is a requirement.
Yes.
Enthusiastic.
Yes. Are you excited? Yes.
If it ain't enthusiastic, you don't want it.
You don't
Don't
want it.
want it. Right.
Mm-mm.
So thank you for giving us this language and this opportunity to just really engage and to expand comfort zones for some people, to give some people a place to start. This will not be the last time that we call upon you, Ms. Chanel
I'm
Jaali.
Yes, I am
So,
here.
and
Yes.
I'm gonna be looking for those videos on your social medias. I will be very excited to see them, and I will share them around as I do. But you enjoy the rest of your day, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm so excited about what's to come. Let me just give y'all a preview. So next week, our Moon Vibes magazine, we talked to y'all about that a few weeks ago as we were working on it. So it is here. It is released. The digital copy is out. The physical copy is beautiful. So this next week it's going to be me, Marsha, and Malika, and we're going to be walking y'all through the magazine, through the publication. We're going to be sharing
Oh,
anecdotes about what the process was, y'all, because we birthed this baby and she is beautiful. So we got
dope.
that next week. And then the following week, we are going to be talking with my new BFF, Brittany McNeil, about the empowered voice because sis will read you always around
Yes.
with dignity, with
Right.
articulation, and with grace and love. Because,
Yes.
honey, it's not about attacks. It is about being assertive and being direct and being empowered in your voice. So we are going to be talking about that in a couple weeks. So, Jolly, thank you again so much for being here. And y'all, everybody else, peace till next time.
Thank you.